Oh, let me tell you something. Busting makes me feel good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Blockbusting, the podcast where we love to hate movies. I am your host, Jay Light. Joining me today, a Vonnegut lover, an Indiana boy, a tall gent, a fellow AMC Stubs member.
Yeah, that's what really has brought us together.
That's what brought us together, really.
Honestly.
Jared Kassebaum.
Hello, Jay.
Hello, Jared. We just found out we're both AMC Stubs. We're part of each other's entourage.
Yeah, we finally got into each other's entourage. That's when a friendship gets real because it implies we're going to hang out. Mm-hmm. You know, we haven't yet.
We haven't yet.
But
You've been busy.
It implies we're going to hang out.
You're busy guy.
We both are busy. You're busy. You're telling me about the show you're shooting next week. We all know we're both busy.
We're both busy.
I think the difference is my busyness is very self-constructed, but you're asked to be a part of larger projects. So very cool, Jay.
You know, if you think about it, life is a larger project.
I haven't thought about it that way. Sounds like
Maybe
you're
you
quite
should.
a philosopher.
I'm an unemployed philosopher, just like Kurt Vonnegut.
Yeah, well, he got employed.
He had a pretty steady work schedule.
Yeah. No, once after Slaughterhouse 5 came out, he never looked back. But you can also tell from the way that he left his wife like a couple years later too. That's the biggest bummer of his life.
Is that he left his wife?
Oh yeah, after he blew up, he completely abandoned his wife, who was super supportive of him. His kids are very bitter about it. It's like the only tarnish on his legacy. And as a person who wants to be a family man, it is the hardest part to love Vonnegut and know that that's like a bummer.
Yeah. And speaking of tarnishing a legacy, let's talk about Martin McDonagh's latest, The Banshees of Inisherin.
The thing we're actually here for.
Yes. Well, I actually think this is a slide transition that I purposely made because you hated this movie.
Yeah.
And I went into it. I like Martin McDonagh. Do you like Martin McDonagh's work?
Yeah, I mean, I loved 3 Billboards.
Yep.
I haven't actually seen In Bruges.
In Bruges,
yeah, I've heard it's phenomenal.
In Bruges is very good. 7 Psychopaths is very good. Yeah. I liked 3 Billboards on my first watch, but I since turned on it. Because,
sure, I mean, the internet turned on it. It was a very trendy thing to turn on it after it won awards.
Well, I did. Here's the thing. I did an episode. This is one of the first episodes of Blockbusting ever. You
was
can go
on
back
3
and look
Billboards?
at it. It was on 3 Billboards.
Oh, okay.
And it's one of the only times to date that my guest has ever actually changed my mind.
Really? They went from positive. They made you go from positive to negative?
I went from loving the movie upon entering that episode of the podcast. And then by the end of it, I was like, wow, I was tricked.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You should go listen to it. It's a really good episode.
I just want to ask you why.
It's Jake Weissman hates 3 Billboards, which I will link to in the comments because it's old. So
I also just love Sam Rockwell. A good Sam Rockwell role for me is like a very good way to my heart. I think he's I know he's probably technically A-list, but I don't think most people know who he is outside of people who really care about movies.
It's hard to consider what an A-list celebrity is anymore, too.
That's true.
Because
so many niches.
There's all these little niches. Like Sam Rockwell he's I would consider him probably like A-list.
Yeah.
He's won Oscars.
He's won Oscars for 3 Billboards.
He's great in pretty much any movie he's in.
Right.
I haven't seen a bad performance out of him.
Right.
But
Iron
he's
Man
not like
2,
a leading
exquisite.
man. He's not a movie who, like, if he's the star of the movie, I don't know if people are going to go see it, which is a shame.
I feel like he's about to hit that era once he becomes old man. Once he becomes like old Hollywood man, I feel like he'll be able to play that like fatherly presence that Hollywood wants in like a leading film.
But I don't even know if this is the interesting thing. I don't know if we're ever going to be in that era ever again. Like
of leading men.
I think George Clooney
might be the end of that.
Maybe the end of leading men. Like Leo
I don't know,
is
man.
barely even a leading man.
Leo or Brad Pitt. I feel like we're about to have like Chalamet. Tom Holland even has like a bunch of leading men roles already, kind of.
Yeah, but Tom Holland has the problem of he can get miscast really easily.
Sure.
I think Timothée Chalamet actually makes a lot more sense because he's still in like teen heartthrob stage, even though he's a 20-something.
Right. But most leading men or women start as heartthrobs, like in their career. Like almost all of them, like even Tom Hanks, who I would say is a leading man.
I think he's
led me.
Here's the test for leading man is, in my mind, Timothy Chalamet, great example, right? He is Oscar nominated.
Right.
He is
never won, Timothy,
but he's very acclaimed. He's well deserved
for that. Just for dramatic effect.
He's gonna seek you out just because you look directly down his barrel.
Yeah.
He's in Dune, right?
Right.
But are people going to see Dune for Timothy Chalamet, or are they going to see Dune because it's Dune?
But I feel like there are other movies that he has like been the ticket for.
Name one.
Okay, I will. I'll try. I can't.
And there's my point. Like,
okay,
I think
you're right. I guess I'm just sussing out a vibe here.
I think Timothy Chalamet is a good actor, but like I want to see Bones and All, which he's in, but I don't want to see it because Timothy Chalamet is in it.
Sure.
I want to see it because I appreciate the work of that director.
Sure.
Who also just happens to have Timothy Chalamet as his muse.
You're making
as evidenced by like Call Me by Your Name.
Sure. No, I think what I'm seeing now, even in this conversation, is that I do think that in the last couple of years, the idea of a leading man kind of implies almost like a cult of personality. And a cult of personality at this point really only revolves around people who are mired in political controversy. And so there are people I think that, like there are people that I think would go see a Chris Pratt movie because of Chris Pratt, but that's not really because he's a great actor. And I'm not a Chris Pratt hater. I think he gets too much hate, to be honest.
Sure.
But I do think that because he has been even just slightly on the right, there are people on the right who will see his movies because of him. And be like, I'm going to go support Chris Pratt. And that's almost like the new version of a leading man.
You're going to support whoever you agree with.
Yeah.
That's why I think, Clint Eastwood, also a great leading man in his own right, but has also fallen into that trap a little bit.
Oh, totally. Which is why
ever
I'm really
since he talked to an invisible chair in, what was that, 2009?
Yeah. I think that was a 2009 CPAC conference, right?
It was either a CPAC or was a Republican. It might have been the RNC. I think it might have been 2012 RNC.
Yeah, that was. But dude, the pundits had a field day with that. I think, which is why I'm really excited to see Bernie become a leading man. Bernie Sanders.
He's going to be a great leading man.
He's going to be a great leading man. We're going to go support him because his acting's not that great. But I love his politics.
Banshees of Inisherin.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So this is a movie, Martin McDonagh, I have loved his work, like I said. And I went into this movie expecting to be like, Jared's going to be wrong on this.
Yeah.
We can have an argument. And
I went into the movie expecting to love it.
Yeah. And I watched it, and it's a different kind of Martin McDonagh movie, and one that I am not tonally a fan of.
Yeah.
And I fell asleep a little bit.
Yeah.
I nodded off.
No, you're not.
I saw it with Daisy Green. She had to like nudge me a couple of times to make sure.
It's that kind of movie. It is that kind of movie. But there's an element of like a gorgeous landscape and a gorgeous soundtrack with Irish themes.
Yes.
We've been trained to fall asleep to that since the early days of Lo-Fi Girl. You know what I mean? Like that's.
This is the thing. So this movie, it just came out. This is we're hot in the middle of award season.
Right.
This is probably.
That's actually why I think I'm pissed about it. Is because if it were just a movie, I'd be like, okay, it was all right.
Yeah.
But because I know it's already getting Oscar buzz, it makes me more mad because to me, it's so surprising.
Right. It's already gotten at the Venice International Film Festival. It was
13
nominated
minutes,
for Golden
right?
Lion. Standing ovation, you mean? I think
Which I know is like all BS, the number of minutes, because they're like required to clap for at least a couple minutes or whatever.
Yeah, but you don't have to give a standing ovation. Look, I've been to Cannes. People don't have to stand.
Okay, Jay.
People can boo.
Mr. J, I've been to Cannes Light. I like it. I
had an internship there. I
didn't
go. Did you know that, by the way, if you ever want to trick somebody into thinking you're famous or fancy, you can say you went to Cannes. You can pay to go to Cannes.
Right.
Like you can just show up and like
is it as
submit.
expensive as the plane ticket to go to Cannes? Because to me,
a little
that would
bit
be
more than that.
Yeah.
Because you got to pay for the hotel.
Right.
Or do the internship program.
Right. Because to me, the plane would be the part that I'm like, if I'm going to Cannes, I'm just doing a whole Europe trip.
You might as well. That's the plan. It got nominated for one Golden Screenplay, Best Screenplay.
At Cannes?
The Golden Osella. No, it wasn't at Cannes. This is at Venice.
Oh, at Venice. My bad, yeah.
Volpe Cup for Best Actor. Colin Farrell won that over Brendan Fraser in The Renaissance.
Okay.
It's been nominated for a handful of things already. Gotham nominated it for Best International Feature.
Right.
Right. It won Best Film and the Audience Choice at the San Diego International Film Festival,
which is huge.
Hollywood Music and Media Awards nominated it for Best Original Score. It currently
score-wise, gorgeous score, gorgeous cinematography. No arguments there.
I think that this deserves a lot of craft attention. I think I loved the cinematography.
Yeah,
I loved the score. I loved the costumes.
Yeah,
I really want some of those like cool long collar sweaters that they have.
Yeah, those are fun.
The sweater game for the Irish.
Yeah,
so much more on point in the 20s.
Because that island or like that group of islands that this is set on is the one that has the like Aryan wool. Like that's where if you buy like an official,
never even heard of this.
If you buy like an official, it's not Aryan in like the Hitler sense, but if you buy,
that's Aryan. I think.
Yeah. I'm just trying to clarify.
Yeah.
That if you buy like an official like Aryan wool sweater, this is like the region of Ireland it comes from.
Oh, okay.
It's like an international. It's like if you buy a cashmere and it comes from like a certain region.
It's Champagne, like that. It comes from the Champagne region.
It's like that version of sweater.
Okay. Now, the real question here is the Banshees of Inisherin.
Yeah.
Is
it good?
Or, well, but you're
kidding.
right.
I'm just kidding.
That is the question here.
I mean, I know we're both above rudimentary questions like that.
I think we both went into this expecting, and I'm trying to divorce myself from the expectations here.
Right.
Because then I came out of it feeling like this is Banshees of Inisherin.
Oh, that's good.
I've been waiting literally 2 hours to say that.
That's a good line.
Yeah.
Now I see why you write roasts. That's a good line. That's
understand.
A good snoring pun will go a long way.
Yeah. But you saw it, and you had somebody in your party fall asleep while watching it.
I was going to bring that up. My wife fell asleep within probably 15 minutes, and then literally woke up like in the big fire at the end, and she's like, "What's going on?" And it was such a deep sleep that it wasn't like, how usually when you nod off in a movie, you're like in and out a little bit.
Yeah.
I think my wife like felt rested. You know what I mean? It was like that type of sleep.
It's kind of a soothing movie.
Right. She like woke up being like, do I need to sleep tonight? Like it was like she felt like rejuvenated. It was like a solid power nap.
This movie's one of those podcasts that you listen to when you're trying to fall asleep. And it's just very soothing.
Honestly, yeah.
It gets the job done.
Yeah. And I think, and that's why, yeah. And so for me, the big thing I didn't like about it is that it felt like it was trying to be like a fable.
Okay.
Or like an allegory at the least, but maybe even all the way into fable territory.
Yeah.
But it felt like it was also, while trying to navigate fable territory, was still trying to act as if it's very grounded.
Yeah.
And it felt incredibly ungrounded. Right? The big conflict. Am I allowed to say spoilers?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, let's talk about the plot and stuff of the movie. Spoil away. Because I feel like we need to have, for all the people out there who are not going to see this movie, just need to have a little bit more context.
Amen.
So what were you going to spoil?
Well, so like the main conflict of the movie, right, revolves around the idea that this older gentleman says, I forget the names of the characters, but that's mostly because they're Irish.
Colm and Padraig.
So Colm,
that's played by Brendan Gleeson.
Phenomenal. Domhnall Gleeson's dad. A little bit of nepotism in Hollywood never hurt anybody, but great pair of actors there.
And Padraig,
played by Colin Farrell. Who is phenomenal. And I think his part in this is great and to be praised, and he makes every movie a little bit better. He's a jolly good guy.
It's so interesting to think about, because we're talking about this movie, and I agree with you on all these points about how the acting is good. I love Barry Keoghan's character in this. I thought he was played very well. Kerry Condon, I thought, did a great job.
Yeah.
There were parts that I laughed and enjoyed.
Sure.
I thought the writing was really solid.
Especially at the beginning, when I was still curious about it, I really laughed. The beginning, the dark humor hit me in the beginning when I was still like, oh, let's see where this goes. By the end, I was almost like pissed just that I even laughed at the beginning, because I was so mad at like where it went and how nothing felt like it had payoff, and it just ended in flame, which is like supposed to be this beautiful allegory or whatever, but it just felt very very empty of any significance or meaning. The existential philosophy of it got really muddied. But,
like there's every part of this movie
is beautiful in itself.
It should add up to be a beautiful movie, but it just didn't.
I'm not the first one to make this analogy, but it's like Mariah Carey to me. Beautiful face, beautiful voice, but I think her music is great, but at the end of the day, I kind of find her annoying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly.
But if I were to dissect the different aspects of the artist and singer Mariah Carey, I'd be like, great, great. You put it all together, and I'm like, I don't know.
That's what Banshees of Inisherin
That's what Banshees of Inisherin is.
Yeah. So the plot of the movie, right? It's very small. It's set in a fictional island in Ireland during the Irish Civil War of 1923. Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell's characters. Colin Farrell decides all of the days he goes and hangs out with him. He goes and 2:00. They go to the pub together. They have a couple pints.
Right. Dream life.
Dream life.
Yeah.
Shepherd
from 7 to 2.
He gets to walk his cows around.
Right.
He's got a pet donkey.
Yeah.
And Colm. He's Colm. He all of a sudden one day decides that he doesn't want to hang out with Colin Farrell anymore, and he wants to lean into his folk music. Right. And become a great composer because art lives on, blah, blah.
Which at that point in the film, I was still like, okay, I like this. Because at that little argument where he says, I want to mean something, I want to make art that matters. And then Padraig is like, but I'm nice.
Yeah.
That speech
I'm a good guy.
That was by far my favorite scene. And it was the part of the movie that I had the most hope for where it would go.
Right.
And I think it's similar to even, another movie that I know will be on this podcast, but Everything Everywhere, the kindness speech in that, which I think but I think to even use that as a differentiator, because in Everything Everywhere All at Once, that speech ends up being kind of the focal point.
It's the thesis of the movie.
It's the thesis of the movie. So when I heard this speech or this dialogue, this argument in Banshees, I thought, oh, this is going to be the thesis statement. And then it never was.
Right.
It just went off the rails into this tale of revenge. And I know you're still trying to do a recap, but it's just
we don't even have to do that much of a recap. The revenge is basically laid out at the very beginning of the movie, too, because he's saying in the trailer, even.
Right.
He says, if you don't stop trying to hang out with me, I'm going to cut off my fingers.
Right. So that's the plot. That then the rest of the movie is, he's not going to cut off his fingers. I'm going to talk to him, and then he still cuts off a finger, and then every time he goes, I don't think he's going to cut off another one, and then he
cuts
does,
off more
and
fingers.
then all of a sudden he has like one hand left, and then but how is the argument that he's making as a character? This is why I feel like it's trying to be a fable, but it's also trying to be grounded. But the fable-like qualities that go so extreme into this absurdism, they actually they destroy any sense of groundedness, which then makes it feel just like this goofy like kid's tale. It felt like the type of tale that a kid would tell their parent when the parent is like, before bed, do you want to tell the story tonight? Like
it felt like nursery that type, rhyme a little bit.
Yeah, where it's like, it felt like a Brothers Grimm where it's like, I'm going to cut off my fingers if you don't shut up. Like, it's an annoying...
And then the donkey's going to choke on the fingers.
Right. And then I'm going to blow your house down. And it's like, this makes... So there's a lot of fable-like qualities to it. But then at the same time, it was trying to be this very grounded, like, Irish Civil War. And so... But or like philosophically, if his argument is, I'm trying to be a great artist... I'm trying to make art that impacts the world, that's going to exist beyond my lifetime.
Right.
That's like why he wants to throw out the friendship.
Right.
But my solution to pursuing that is to cut off my own fingers, which prevent me from being an artist.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense.
And the other thing to me that doesn't make any sense is we are meant to believe that there's a couple different theses in this movie, right? Like one, I think that's another problem with it is that they have
muddied theses.
It's muddied. There's too many theses. We're getting to Martin Luther levels with the amount of theses.
The amount of theses remind me of feces. That's
a joke that I wish I had come up with.
I heard it.
You got a bright future in Hollywood.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Pay me for roast.
So here's the start. We have this art thing, right? Where it's like you need to become isolated. You need to like shed friendships in order to pursue your art, and that's going to cause some problems.
Right. I thought it was going to be a story of ambition and family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is more important, ambition or connection?
Which is a tried and true trope that can feel overdone, but also we need more of it because it's the perpetual struggle of the ego and the way ego interacts with friends.
And there's other elements in the narrative that kind of lead to maybe that being a core element of the movie, right?
It almost was.
Carrie Condon's character wanting to leave the island but work on the mainland at the library.
Which feels like a healthy version of sacrificing friends and family so that you can live a fuller life.
Right.
There's almost like, that's what we both did by moving to LA in a sense. It is essentially that journey, but it's not that we're going to actively harm the people that we are leaving in order to pursue those things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the other big element of the movie that I think comes into play as like a thesis of the film is it sort of comes up near like I've memory serves like the second third of the movie.
Yeah.
Where
the end of the second act kind of.
Yeah. Where Carrie Condon is saying, I'm going to leave. And is like, you're going to live this boring life. You're all boring. Everybody's boring on this island. Everybody's sad and having these weird existential crises all the time. Do you want to be that? Mm-hmm. And then it becomes, to me, like we're shifting the story from, do you want to live an ambitious life or live a small life, to, if you just hang out somewhere long enough, you're going to be sad.
Right. I felt like the ending, I wrote it down as a slightly different thing, but I would say the exact same thrust is that I found that the thesis by the end was, if you wait long enough, nice guys become murderers.
Yeah.
Like if you wait long enough, even good things will go up in flames and you will hate everybody around you.
In the words
it was a very nihilistic.
In the words of, who's the guy? Commissioner Gordon.
Oh, Commissioner
Either
Gordon.
die a hero or live long enough.
No. Commissioner Gordon didn't say that.
Who said that?
Two-Face. Two-Face said that.
Sorry. I haven't seen The Dark Knight.
Our Lord and Savior Aaron Eckhart said that.
But that's the thing with this movie. Like it's got too much for a small.
Did you think Commissioner Gordon became a villain?
Movie.
Sorry,
Commissioner Gordon's not the villain of
Batman.
No, he
doesn't ever become the villain.
I just thought he was.
Sorry, I know I interrupted you. I was just like, wait a second.
It was just it was an honest mistake.
No, it's good.
All right,
sorry,
this podcast
say your
is
thought
over
again.
now.
I got hung up on that.
How dare you?
Okay, sorry. Say your thought again.
I think that this movie is part of it also for me is that it's much smaller than Martin McDonagh's other movies.
Sure.
His other movies have a little bit of bombast and excitement to them.
Yeah. There's one moment of bombast in this movie when they heard the bombs bast in the other island.
Come on.
Because there's the Irish Civil War. There's some bombs that go off.
Oh, jeez.
I thought we were just enjoying each other's puns, but I guess we'll...
Not anymore. Not after you got on to me about
Commissioner Gordon.
Commissioner Gordon.
I mean, I guess one of us likes Batman.
Now you're going to be out of commissioner if you don't get your act right.
No.
But I think that it's like this movie needed the bigger moments, the cutting off the fingers and the fire and those moments.
Right.
I felt like are the closest we're getting to big moments in the story. I guess a little bit of Barry Keoghan's character getting fished out of
right. That was
lake.
A heartbreaking moment.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Jenny dying, the donkey dying. Very sad.
Truly heartbreaking.
Yes.
Like I was sad in those moments.
I was sad in those moments.
Yeah.
I was sad watching Colin Farrell cry.
And in those moments,
he did a great job.
In those moments were done well, but tied together, I could not figure out what it was saying.
Because it felt like everything did occur on the same level. That was the thing for me is there wasn't any variance in those moments.
Right.
Like everything.
Or the crazy old woman.
Yeah.
Like it felt like the same level of like absurdity without ever breaking into a sense of realism or a full on.
And we know Colin Farrell can do some like absurd
right. I
stuff.
mean, the lobster, because it had lobster vibes at times, partly because of Colin Farrell, but also just because of the dark comedy and like the heavy length. I mean, I feel like we call it a dark comedy when there are heavy lengths of pauses in between dark statements.
Yes.
And when we go, that's a dark comedy.
That's a dark comedy. They made us laugh a couple times.
They made us laugh a couple times when they said really sad things and two characters stared at each other without talking. That's a dark comedy.
This does summon the word tragicomedy very well. Because it is more of a tragedy than a comedy.
I agree. I mean, it's a very Shakespearean comedy.
But I think that to that point too about the lobster, I do think is a good example. I also think in the same director, same Yorgos Lanthimos world,
right?
Killing of a Sacred Deer,
yeah,
where we have a directorial choice for everything to be delivered almost throughout the entire movie as like this sort of deadpan thing. Yeah. But then you still have moments that feel bigger and heightened,
right?
Like where he and Nicole Kidman have their fight in the kitchen,
right? And
he's smashing all the plates.
Right. Early Wes Anderson movies have that feeling too, where it's disaffected until the emotional climax, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this means something finally.
Right. And the emotional, bigger climactic moments of this movie didn't feel like they still had that change in emotion.
But I think it's because we didn't know what they were saying. I mean, I still don't know what the fire means. What does the fire, like, I get that it's
just a revenge. It doesn't really mean
that's what I mean.
anything,
That's
though.
why
Yeah.
I'm like, that's why I think it makes me pissed that it's like already in winning all these awards, being nominated for things and in the Oscar conversation, is because what does it mean? If it means this ambition philosophy, that's kind of cool, but then it loses that halfway through.
Yeah.
And then by the end, it's this nihilism of everything turns to crap by the end anyway.
It runs out of steam.
It runs out of steam. I think that if this friendship, because the one thing I read on a lot of reviews was that this whole thing is this big allegory for the 1923 Irish Civil War, which
I guess
is it maybe, is that cool? Sure. Am I supposed to know that going in? Like, am I supposed to get that? If you're Irish, sure. 100%. Like you probably connected those dots. But am I supposed to know that and then appreciate that if there's absolutely no other, I don't know.
I mean, I'm half Irish, and I did not know that there was another Civil War outside of the original Civil War.
Right.
One, not the. I guess this is the original. I'm talking about the Troubles.
70s. Yeah.
But this is the thing. It's like, even reading reviews of this movie, a lot of people are like, they're focusing, at least on Rotten Tomatoes, the top line of the reviews. Everybody's focusing on the friendship,
right?
As like,
that is the core.
That's the core, and they're saying stuff like Paul McGuire Grimes of Paul's Trip to the Movies. Martin McDonagh takes something as universal as a dissolving friendship and gives it his unique spin to it. Bad writing. Gives it his unique spin to it.
It's a way to say nothing.
With the Banshees of Inisherin.
It's a way to say, I know other people told me I'm supposed to like this. That's how I hear that.
It's a striking view of one person's decision on how he wants to spend what precious time he has left. That's not striking.
And that's also only the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
I feel like it loses that. If the first half were to wrap up with some sort of big speech about how friendships need to end because, I'm moving on to this part of my life, that's one thing. But it turned, the way Colin Farrell's character devolved into his own chaos became, it lost whatever meaning the kindness thing at the beginning was supposed to say. Not that characters have to be virtuous the whole way through a story, but it felt like it lost the philosophy pretty heavily.
Matthew Creeth from Screen Rant. The film's demonstration of metaphorical aspects of civil disobedience and internal protest between a set of individuals is remarkably hilarious.
Civil disobedience, is he essentially saying cutting off his fingers is civil disobedience, against a bad friendship?
Is that protest? That's not internal. That's pretty external. You're cutting off your fucking fingers.
Right.
Fingers,
it's essentially I guess it'd be similar to like a prisoner's hunger strike, which is, common within prison reform.
But there are movies about hunger, especially Irish hunger strikes.
Yeah, literal Irish hunger strikes.
Seem like they are much better than this because
I'm just tossing out an opinion, but I think those are better than this one.
I haven't seen I haven't seen Hunger, so I can't say for sure.
But it's interesting we had two different Irish Civil War movies 2 years in a row that might be nominated for Best Picture. I mean, Belfast last year, which was
but that's the Troubles, right?
That's the other Civil War.
The other one.
And which I thought was phenomenal, but it's what I think is also with the Irish Civil War allegory thing is that if this were a story set amongst the Irish Civil War and there's some other conflict, that this is also happening with that as the backdrop, not just as the very contextual backdrop, but actually the backdrop of the story.
Yeah.
That if this character drama was happening while they're also involved in some part of the Irish Civil War or whatever, I feel like I would feel very differently about the way the character development happened.
Right.
Because they're also dealing with these other things. But I think that also made it feel very flat, like you're saying, because this was the only through line. I mean, there's the Barry Keoghan, there's the sister leaving,
but that's not real. But those aren't really integral to the plot.
No,
they're moments, in an actionable way.
Yeah, they're moments, but they don't actually really like drive the plot forward by any means. And the only real plot is this friendship devolving, and it felt so flat. I guess I still just don't know what it's trying to say.
Well, that's the other thing too. It's like even some reviewers who are talking about how much they don't like the movie, the handful of people who cop to that, like Mark Feeney of the Boston Globe, said the metaphor for the Irish Civil War is awfully flat-footed. Which, if I don't know a whole lot of history about the Irish Civil War, I would imagine that like most civil wars, it starts with people within the same country having a disagreement. That's Civil War definition 101, right?
Yeah. I think
seemingly for no reason, but I think that there needs to be, if we're trying to do an allegory or a metaphor for the Irish Civil War, we need a little bit more context, right? We need stuff to handhold us a little bit because we're dumb Americans. We don't understand the context of that.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and even with understanding a little bit of context, because I think like the Irish Civil War, from my understanding, is which side was sympathetic to the English and the Cromwell takeover, and then that kind of like carried through.
Right.
And then you have the Protestant Catholic divide was the big part of it too, even among Northern
and they throw some of that in there. You know, you see some sprinkles of people hating on Protestants,
right,
in this movie.
Yeah, easy to hate.
Yeah, very easy to hate. But there's just like a level of I just don't feel like there's any reason to care about this story.
Right.
Which is unfortunate.
I mean, which is what to me places it into that fable category, because all of a sudden it's a story with extreme character decisions that aren't based in reality or rooted in any sort of groundedness, that it's extreme character decisions that seem meant to progress a story that would otherwise not. It's hard to say, because I know, like, I don't want to say that it's fantastical or even, you know, like, because in fantasy and sci-fi, the fun with those genres is that there's still very rooted character decisions taking place in a fantastic world.
Yeah. This
is very extreme character decisions taking place in what's an otherwise grounded world.
Yes.
And that flip-flop doesn't add up to anything. And we're walking around in circles just saying it's muddy, but it is just so muddy.
It's muddy. That's the thing. And this movie, sucks you in the mud. This movie sucks.
You into the mud.
I think here's I think what we're trying to say said more eloquently by Anne Hornaday.
Oh, Anne Hornaday is the best
of the Washington Post.
Oh, the WAPO.
Good old WAPO. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Jeff Bezos, for buying that and hiring Anne Hornaday.
Dude, Jeff and Anne, what a duo.
McDonough sets up a central dynamic that's seductive in its binary simplicity. What's more important, to be loved or to be great, to be smart or to be kind, nice or interesting? The fact that the choice is a false one is but a quibble within the filmmaker's larger project, which is to put his characters in a purgatory of his own making and prod them while they squirm.
Right.
What they find at the end of the filmmaker's rainbow is less likely to be a pot of philosophical gold than of prosaic self-satisfaction.
Yeah.
This is a movie that is designed for people to watch it and think it's great. This is unfortunately, I think this is what we've gotten in with this movie.
Yeah, I think that I just would be hard pressed to ever think that a director or a filmmaker would go through this much effort to spend 3 years or so of their life making a movie for it to be in that sort of like purely egotistical realm.
Right.
So I like to think that McDonough like tried to do something.
I think he probably did.
You know what I mean?
And I think that there's probably, as dumb Americans, there's some context for the Irish Civil War that we just don't get.
And that all the positive American reviewers are patting themselves on the back for acting like they get.
Right.
That's how I read that.
I think that there's definitely not, I don't think he made this with the intention of trying to be like, look how good of a filmmaker I am.
Right.
I already trust he's a good filmmaker.
Right. We've seen it happen.
I've been a fan of his other movies.
Right.
But this one, it just felt too small, too narrow in its focus for the story that everybody else seems to be understanding here. I feel like we need a little bit more context and a little bit more bombast.
Not bombs blasting.
Bombs basting.
But just bomb blast.
Yeah.
Filmmaking wise.
Also, if we had seen a little bit of the actual Irish Civil War, sure, that'd be fine.
Honestly, I think that would have added a lot to it.
Yeah. Instead of seeing it from a distance.
Yeah, to understand the tension that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Every review you read, positive or negative, highlighted the dichotomy of the smart versus kind in some way. As that woman put it, smart versus kind, as our good friend Anne put it.
Gold old Anne Hornaday.
Yeah, as our friend Anne put it, it's smart versus kind. But every review had some version of that dichotomy. And even we're saying that dichotomy is a very interesting one to explore.
Mm-hmm.
But but the second half of the movie completely ceases diving into that dichotomy.
Yes.
It just turns into a revenge story. That dichotomy is never revisited, even in their final confrontation on the beach. It's just about, are we going to keep this up or not? Are we just going to continue to have revenge upon revenge?
Right.
So all of a sudden it flips from the dichotomy of smart versus kind to the nihilism of humanity in war, always seeking revenge, and how every war is perpetuated because the last person to have had revenge thinks now it's my turn to give them revenge. And we always think that. So there is also a note
even though he doesn't even feel bad. Brendan Gleeson feels bad.
Right.
He didn't even want to.
Right.
He was like, we should squash this.
Right.
This was an accident.
Right. Well, because he never wanted it to continue, except for his. But there's a weird moral arrogance to that character that says, "I'm going to cut you out of my life for no reason, and then I'm going to cut off my fingers, and then when you are surprised about that, I'm going to be like, I didn't want this to happen.
I didn't want my
That's
fingers
ridiculous.
to get
That's
cut
ridiculous.
off.
You can't do that. You couldn't do that. Like I couldn't like kick your knee, and then if you kick my knee back, be like, I wanted us to stop after I kicked your knee.
Yeah,
like that's childish. It's like have you seen the TikTok trend right now? Are you on TikTok?
I'm on TikTok. I'm not as up to date with the trends.
I'm all about the trends, Jay. The trend that I am referencing, what was big over Thanksgiving, I think, as people saw their families, was as a lot of kids do, where you tag somebody saying, okay, tag, you're playing tag, and then you run away. And as soon as the little kid, usually in the age of like 3 to 6, if they're about to get tagged, they no longer want to play.
Yes.
It felt like that with this character, but the trend on TikTok is very funny. It's like adults doing it, so they'll tag, and then as soon as you try to tag me, I'm like, stop, I don't want to do this anymore. And they like play into that drama. But I do feel like that's a thing that kids do, and that's how Gleason's character felt in this.
Yeah.
Colm was very much like, I'm going to start this game, and then I don't want to keep playing, and I'm going to blame it on you. Yeah. And I'm supposed to sympathize with him? I'm supposed to be like, you're right, Colin Farrell is kind of annoying, so therefore you should cut off your fingers.
Yep.
It makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense. I think this is a great bow to tie on this.
Tie a bow, Jay.
From Bennett Campbell Ferguson.
Oh, Bennett's a good dude. Yeah,
good dude.
Oh, the Willie.
For all, waggle this Willie at us.
No, man.
For all his ambition, McDonough fails to understand one of cinema's defining truths: that bleakness doesn't automatically equal greatness. I think that this movie, there's
say that again.
Bleakness
does not
automatically. Hold on, I said it all wrong.
Automatically.
That bleakness doesn't automatically equal greatness.
Yeah.
I think
beautiful
that there's a level of bleakness in McDonough's other work that is tempered with A, his humor, but also B, the actual growth and narrative thrust of a story and its characters.
Right.
In this, I don't think nobody really changes.
No, there's no growth. There's no character change. If anything, it's one step to the worse.
Yeah. And it feels like this is not the story ending, but this is where the story has to end.
If anything, this could have been the end of the movie could have been a great end to a second act of another movie.
Yeah. And that's not a great thing to say about your 2-hour movie.
And if anything, it feels like then, and maybe I'm too dramatic, but like if it feels like this is him thinking that people have appreciated the bleakness of his other films, so I'll double down on that, not realizing that what most people want out of a story is maybe not like some grand narrative of hope, but one shred of positive change in a character.
Yes.
That even in the midst of bleakness, one tiny step of positive change feels like hope.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's a great, and it completely didn't have
way to
any
think
of
about
that.
it. Now, if there was
Thank you, Jay.
a movie that you think people should watch instead of this, if they want to get their bleak on, but not in a way where they're going to feel like they've been crushed by a donkey,
right?
What do they watch instead?
And I think that to me, a movie that is bleak the whole time, that ends still bleak, but has one tiny step of character growth that gives you a sense of hope by the end, which is I think what I thought this movie was going to be, and then it never was, is Manchester by the Sea.
Okay.
Casey Affleck's, Academy Award. And I know he's got drama, but a phenomenal performance, and came out, 2018 or something like that?
I think so. Maybe a little bit older. I've never seen it.
You never seen Manchester by the Sea?
No, I missed it.
Oh, Jay, you're going to cry. It's a phenomenal film. It does, again, it's not this movie, and it's not a dark comedy, and it's not like got this like weird offbeat humor.
2016.
But it's got a very, it's a story of grief that essentially the thesis is like, even if grief never gets better, but I can keep going.
Interesting. Hopeful.
Yeah, so it's not hope in the sense that grief
hope.
isn't nice, and it's not hopeful in the sense that pain isn't real, but it's hopeful in the sense that we can keep going.
That's the shred that we need.
And that's what I thought this movie was going to have by the end. And maybe I'm just a hopeless sentimentalist thinking that a movie should have character growth. But I do feel like every book on stories I've ever read about storytelling,
all the books back there, they're all going to be like, hey, your character should grow. Even if it's just the teeniest, tiniest bit.
And honestly, those are the movies that are often the Oscar movies, are the movies that have the teeny tiny growth.
Yeah.
Because those are the very human, very real, very rooted and grounded elements of growth.
Yeah.
Is the teeny tiny growth.
I feel like the regression here is the opposite of what we're looking for. Like a regression into yourself. Like, I think if we're talking like monstrous characters, right? Which I wouldn't say these characters are monstrous, but like one of my all-time favorite movies, I think probably the all-time favorite movie, I got a fucking tattoo of it, is, oh God.
What's your tattoo, Jay?
There Will Be Blood. There Will Be Blood, right?
Yeah,
Which has a super monstrous main character in it.
Sure.
But you do get to see him go through actual growth.
Right.
And deal with the fact of like, he has to make of the sacrifices he has to make in order to achieve his goal and his dream.
Right.
And the toll that takes on him to the point where he feels like, as an act of revenge, the best thing to do is beat a man to death in a bowling alley.
Right. Well, but stories that have a bleakness, that have the opposite of growth, that have a regression, those can still be beautiful if it feels like they're saying something about that regression.
And I think
that's like Breaking Bad or like a lot of those type of stories where it's regression, but it says something.
Right. And I think that There Will Be Blood has that inherent in there because we are watching a man who is achieving professional success go through like a moral and personal collapse.
Right.
And unfortunately, the Banshees of Inisherin just didn't share any of that with us.
Or if you're looking for a movie with good UK cliffside vibes that has, I would say, a bleakness with a regression, but it says something, is what is it, Into the Waves, Crashing the Waves, Waves Crashing,
Breaking the Waves.
Is
that that's Lars von Trier?
Yeah, Lars von Trier.
Is that the one about the I've heard a lot about this movie.
And
what's
you've
her
never
name?
seen
Emily
Breaking the Waves?
Mortimer, I think is
Emily
her name.
Something.
Yes, an English language psychological drama film starring Emily Watson. Excuse me, set in the
You haven't
Scottish
seen
Highlands.
Breaking the Waves?
No. It sounds fucking bleak.
It's very bleak, but I feel like it says something.
About an unusual young woman and the love she has for her husband who asks her to have sex with other men when he becomes immobilized from a work accident.
Right. The question that movie is asking is, can I sacrifice myself? Can sacrificing my morals be a loving act?
And that sounds way more fucking
a
interesting
very
than
complex
Banshees of Inisherin.
moral question. I remember I watched that movie for one of my film history classes in college, and literally I kind of hated it in the middle of the movie, but could not stop thinking about it for like 2 weeks. And that's when I realized it was a great movie. You know, it was one of those for me.
Yeah.
Like I just could not stop asking myself the question the film asked. And I was like, oh, that's why it was so freaking bleak, is because it's going to do this to me. It's going to make me ask this question a lot.
I
can't believe you haven't seen that. I feel like that's a movie I think you'd like.
I got to watch both of these movies.
Both of them.
And I will save that for another time. But for now, Jared.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing this horrible experience with me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for talking about how much we both had people fall asleep in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And,
I was one of those people.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
If people want to check your stuff out on the internet, where can they do that?
Man, you know, I don't have a podcast, so am I a comedian? I don't know.
But you don't need one.
I mean, I'm on pretty much every social media at Kassebaum, Kassthebomb, which is a bad pun about my last name, which is Kassebaum.
Bombast?
Yeah, Kassebaum-bast. So I'm on all the socials with that handle, post, stand up and sketch and, do all that stuff.
Nice. Check him out. Please do. Jared's very funny. And also, if you're in LA, go check out the Sawtell Show.
Yeah, that's Jared my monthly show in LA.
Yep, Jared's a proprietor of that.
On the west side.
Great time.
Yeah.
If you like the podcast, please follow at Blockbusting Pod on all the socials.
Rate and subscribe.
Yes, and consider subscribing to the Patreon.
Yeah.
You get $5 a month for a bevy of film and television. We just finished uploading Taskmaster Series 14 onto the JFlix server. Or you can throw in $1 a month and just support the podcast.
Wait, what is it? Wait, what? And this is not like me trying to help your pitch, but what does $5 a month give you?
JFlix, the JFlix film and television streaming library.
You do a Taskmaster show?
No. I love Taskmaster.
Yeah,
though.
I love Taskmaster too.
I have Series 14 on my JFlix library media server, which you can subscribe and get access to.
You're saying you can watch the original Taskmaster that you're not in?
I'm not. No, I haven't been in any of the Taskmasters.
yeah. I didn't think so.
But Series 14 that just finished airing,
great season.
You can watch it on my media server if you subscribe at $5 a month. That's one of the many shows you get on there.
Is that legal?
I don't know. Who cares?
Sorry, you cut that out. That's really cool. That's a cool Patreon. That's a cool Patreon perk. Guys, $5 a month gets you British television. That's pretty cool.
And American television.
Yeah.
I got The Office in there. I got Tim and Eric, Awesome Show, Great Job in there.
I've never heard of this as a Patreon perk.
Grady in there.
I don't know why this is cracking me up. I've never heard of that as a Patreon perk. Does $5 a month get you more of this? Like, is there more this content?
I mean, there's some bonus episodes here and there. I'm trying to figure out how to do bonus episodes more regularly. It's tougher than I thought it was going to be.
No, I have a Patreon as well, which I guess I should probably pitch.
You have a Patreon?
I do. I post 2 extra videos a month to my Patreon that nobody else sees. 17 people are loving those videos right now.
Nice.
And by that, I mean 17 people are subscribed to my Patreon, and realistically, 3 of them are loving those videos.
Nice. But that's more than Blockbusting has.
Yeah.
Good job.
So, wow, guys, for $9 a month, which is my base tier, you can get 2 extra videos of mine a month, which one is like a vlog style where I talk through every single show that I did for the month.
Okay.
And I give like my thoughts on every show that I did.
I like
most
that.
of the people that are following because they love the stand-up journey, like overall. And then the other video I post a month is I'll post a longer set that I did that month so that you can, because I only post otherwise, 1-minute clips to all the freaking social media.
Of course. I mean, that's all we're here for now is to be clip factories.
Honestly, yeah. It's funny to watch people on stage be like, this is going to be a good TikTok. I'm like, if that's your mindset on stage, man.
Don't you dare.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Don't you dare
mindset.
ruin my art form. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Jared.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. This is a good time.
Yes.
We still got to get coffee?
Yeah. This has been Blockbusting. Go see something good for a change.